Hey everyone, Golden Ninja 3000 here again. Today I'm going to be reviewing WandaVision episode 8 titled Previously On. There will be spoilers ahead, so go ahead and watch that if you haven't seen it already. I really loved this episode. Favorite episode of WandaVision for sure. Favorite thing in the MCU, probably like the best 40 minutes in the MCU, I'd say it was. And I'm really excited to see where they're going in the finale. But part of what I loved about this episode was just how unique like every single scene was. So starting with like Agatha Harkness in Salem, that scene is just unlike anything the MCU has ever done. It's much darker, it's much creepier. It just felt completely different. Like down to like the witchcraft. That looks nothing like, Wanda's witchcraft either. So I thought that was really awesome. Catherine Hahn is killing it as Agatha. Like just the way that she acted like as young Agatha in that scene, and then just like the personality switch to how she was with Wanda in the basement is just perfect. And I really liked the whole setup for this episode where she's like kind of walking Wanda through her life, because we all expected that to happen. But it's just so insane to finally see scenes that like we've been hearing about for years, like Wanda's parents dying, and that's where I want to start. So finally getting to see them with their parents in Sokovia, that was really awesome. But what was even cooler was the fact that the family bonded over sitcoms. Again, most people assumed that that's why sitcoms were important to her, but I really love that because those bonding scenes were perfect. And then, of course, it being interrupted by the arrival of the bomb. That's a scene that we've been waiting to see since 2015. I always thought while watching Age of Ultron, like, why don't we get to see a flashback to this instead of just hearing about it? So it was really nice to finally see it. And then also the retcon that she stopped the bomb using a probability hex. That's major. Her being born as a witch is major. I just kind of want to find out why she was born as a witch. Like, was her mother a witch? Because I think that that's a really interesting concept, but it was a very casual retcon. Finally, getting to see the Hydra experimentation was awesome as well. We did know that that was coming from the trailers, but I think it was a huge missed opportunity for cameos. I mean, the actors that played Strucker and Dr. List aren't very big, so I don't know why they couldn't have gotten them back for just this one scene, because it was kind of weird to just have two random scientists. Maybe they were busy with other stuff, but I would have really liked to see them back, as well as Aaron Taylor Johnson as Quicksilver. Would have been great to see him in a flashback. Don't really know why they're so allergic to using him. Like, please just bring him back, even if he's not going to come back to life. But I mean, seeing the Mind Stone, seeing Loki's scepter, all of that stuff is like so nostalgic. Like, Loki's scepter has now been like affecting the MCU for like 9 years. I always love seeing it. It is really dumb though that they still have to deal with that whole Mind Stone, like the yellow Mind Stone being inside the blue scepter. Like they clearly didn't intend for it to be an Infinity Stone. I think like for both that and the Tesseract to be stones. So that's kind of funny to me, but it was amazing to see the new Scarlet Witch suit like appear in the Mind Stone. That was just a really amazing visual, and people have like edited it so you can get a clearer look at her suit, and I just cannot wait for Wanda to like fully come into that persona in the finale. Her scene with Vision was also really sweet. Again, we should have gotten a scene like this in like the movies to acknowledge Pietro's death and her grief. But I'm just glad that we're seeing it now to kind of see how their relationship started, because that's the biggest problem with Scarlet Witch and Vision is they go from flirting in Civil War to willing to die for each other in Infinity War, and you don't see any of that progression. It's like they just expect you to get on board with it because you're supposed to know that they're a couple in the comics. I've been really disappointed by that, and so WandaVision is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for their relationship now. But that scene was great. I love that they bonded over sitcoms. I love how like awkward Vision was there. Like he is a really great character. I will be sad if he dies, but on the other hand, I won't really be sad if he doesn't stick around the MCU after this. But then going into Sword, Hayward, I hate Hayward so much. Like to me, he needs to die. Like I don't want him locked up or anything at the end of the show. Like he's one villain that needs to die, because like the way that he's painting Wanda as the villain and like manipulating her and making it seem like she stole Vision's body even though she didn't, like he's just terrible. And I really need like a good answer for why he's like this, and it can't just be, oh, he's a government, like a corrupt government official. That's not going to be good enough for me. Like her seeing his mutilated body was really sad. I didn't want to see that either. And so it must have been like really hard for her. And interestingly, a storyboard showed, like a leaked storyboard showed that she mentioned Tony and Natasha in this scene, and that was cut out. I would have liked to see those mentions stay in there, but I also understand why it was cut out, because she was kind of angry about it, and she was more like sad than angry in like the scene in the show. Wanda traveling to Westview and finding out that Vision had intended for them to live in this house together, and then her like having her breakdown and like creating the Hex and a new version of him. That scene is just hands down one of the best in the MCU. Like, I've rewatched the episode a couple of times, but that scene in particular, I have rewatched that like probably like upwards of 10 times because it's just so good. I love it so much. I do think it's a little bit of a stretch, like just the setup for it, because you're telling me that Vision bought her this plot of land in New Jersey, even though she's one of the most wanted people on Earth after Civil War. But like, I'm definitely willing to let that slide. Like, that's just something that I think is funny and not an actual problem, because that scene is just, again, it's just so good. I don't know how I feel about her making the Hex all herself. The reason why I wanted someone to be helping her is because this is just such a huge jump in power. I understand that she's a natural born witch with powers amplified by an Infinity Stone, but 2 weeks before this, like before she created the Hex, she was at like peak power level when she was raging against Thanos, and all she did was like pick up some rocks and hit him in the face. Like, that was still a great scene in Endgame, but you're really telling me that, like, obviously grief and emotion can unlock powers, but you're really telling me that her grief in that moment, like, she knew that Vision had that house for her. Obviously, seeing it is something different, but it just feels like such a stretch to me, like that one like moment of grief, like, even though everything's building up to it, that like that can unlock reality changing powers for her enough to control a whole town. And for me, that's why we need more backstory. We need to know about like this mythical Scarlet Witch that Agatha talks about, because seeing that name drop was great, but we don't understand anything about that history. And again, we don't even know how Wanda was born as a witch, because there are very few, if any, natural-born superheroes in the MCU, and these are kind of questions that I thought Episode 8 really needed to answer before the finale. So honestly, that's my biggest problem with this episode. Like, the ending was great with the Scarlet Witch name drop. Agatha's witch outfit looks amazing. Can't wait to see her fight Wanda in the finale. But then, like, the introduction of White Vision in the end credits scene, again, really awesome. Super excited that they're doing that, but how much is going to be in this finale? Like, we have so much to cover. We have like the cameos that have been promised, like the aerospace engineer reveal. Now we have White Vision and Agatha to fight. We also have to find out what's going on with Hayward and take care of him. Then Monica, she has to use her powers in this show, right? We still don't know what's going on with fake Pietro. Then are the twins going to age up or not? And then we still need to set up Multiverse of Madness. Like, that's a lot for a 43-minute finale, not including credits, because the finale is 50 minutes total. That's insane to me. I am a little bit worried because this show is not hitting anywhere near the 6 hours that they said they would. And I am a little bit disappointed by that. I was really hoping for like a feature-length finale, like at least over an hour, but hopefully an hour and a half. So I'm a little bit worried about how they're going to tie everything together. And I don't think we're going to get satisfying answers for everything, which is really disappointing because they totally could have given us more answers. They could have told us like more about Agatha's backstory, you know, like, what's her motivation? They haven't established her motivation. It just seems like she wants to be the most powerful witch, which is really lame. Like, she needs something better than that, and that should have been established in 8. So I do want to know more about that. I want to know about like the difference between witchcraft and sorcery, but Doctor Strange 2 can answer that. So it's kind of my thoughts on the episode. As for Lego stuff, seeing like the sitcom studio, like with like the seats for the audience, like, again, that's the kind of Lego set that I want. I do think I'm going to try my hand at designing my own, since I don't think it's what Lego's going to make. However, I do think that this episode gave us a hint at the actual minifigures they're going to do. Scarlet Witch minifigure for sure, like in the actual costume. Agatha Harkness in her witch costume, I bet we're going to see that as a figure. And then I also wouldn't be surprised if we get White Vision as a minifigure, because like 2 new Funko Pops and like a Hasbro Marvel Legends figure were revealed for him today. So it seems like they're pushing him pretty hard in the marketing. So that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on this episode. Again, I love WandaVision. It's my favorite MCU project. It's definitely a 10 out of 10 show. I just do think that little parts are a bit disappointing, and the episodes could be a little bit longer. I mean, we still don't know anything about Sword's backstory for one, and that's something that's going to annoy me until we find out about it in like Secret Invasion. So watch out, you'll hear more complaints about that. But that's it for today. So don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will be covering the finale. Can't wait to see what kind of changes it brings to the MCU. Bye for now.